Battlefield Earth plays like a sci-fi takeover epic shot through a funhouse mirror. Humans are crushed under 1,000 years of occupation. The future is dirt and wreckage, and even the horizon looks sick. The camera stays tilted like the world cannot stand up straight. The edits snap and wipe like a twitch, and the aliens do not just conquer, they posture. Then Travolta's Turl kicks in the doors with that towering hair, and suddenly every scene feels like it belongs to him, whether the story asked for it or not. But beneath all that noise, the story gets pulled somewhere stranger. Travolta was not meant to be the alien at first. Star Wars sent a ripple through Hollywood that helped this project exist in the first place, and a follow-up was already hanging in the air until the box office shut it down cold. These are 10 weird facts about Battlefield Earth, the sci-fi disaster that did not just crash, it spun. Number 1. The first thing Battlefield Earth does isn't plot, it's imbalance. Shot after shot comes in tilted like the horizon itself has been kicked loose and nobody bothered to fix it. You're not watching a world under alien rule, you're watching a world where the camera refuses to sit level for even a second. Roger Christian pushed Dutch angles so hard, the movie starts feeling physically off. Sometimes the frame is caned 30-40 degrees, so a hallway looks like it's sliding downhill, and a conversation feels like it's happening on a ship in rough water. It's meant to make Earth look distorted and alien, and it also cheats scale. When the horizon is slanted, the Psychlos feel bigger, heavier, more dominant, even when you're still looking at an actor in a suit. But the tilt never eases, it stacks, it compounds, and once your eyes start begging for a clean, steady cut, the movie hits you with the second obsession: wipes. Not once in a while, constantly. Scene after scene, the image slides off the screen like the film is trying to Star Wars its way into legitimacy. Except Star Wars used wipes like punctuation. Battlefield Earth uses them like a nervous tick. They don't build momentum, they interrupt it, reminding you every few seconds that this is a movie straining to look like a movie. So the experience turns weirdly physical. Your brain keeps trying to level the frame. Your eyes keep trying to catch up to the transitions, and the story never gets a chance to settle because the filmmaking won't stop moving. When the movie finally lets you catch your balance for half a second, the Psychlos show up and knock it right back out of you. Number 2. This isn't a villain taking over the plot, this is a star pulling the whole film into his orbit. Travolta had been pushing for this movie for years, and early drafts showed it. In one version of the plan, the adaptation wasn't even locked to the book. It was looser, more remixed, and the expectation was that Travolta would take the human lead, the younger character at the center of the rebellion. A very different movie, a very different kind of star vehicle, one where the audience follows Travolta through the ruins as the savior, not the tyrant. Then the ground shifted, the script got delivered, control moved, and the direction swung back toward the book's main spine. The production track changed, and with it, the movie's center of gravity changed too. Travolta didn't end up as the human hero, he picked the alien, and once that choice was made, you can see the ripple hit the entire film. Turl isn't written or played like a standard heavy. He's everywhere, cackling, bullying, lecturing, reacting, mugging, dominating rooms like the camera is afraid to leave him. The villain doesn't just oppose the hero, he becomes the project's main event because the person with the most fuel is now inside the monster suit. So when people say Battlefield Earth feels like it can't breathe, this is part of the reason. The story keeps trying to push forward and Turl keeps pulling it back into a spotlight. That's when the next problem shows up. It isn't just Turl taking over the movie, it's the movie trying to squeeze a whole universe into his spotlight. Number 3. The real twist isn't what they changed, it's what they left behind. The film only covers the first third of the novel, so the story never reaches the bigger endgame the book was built to climb toward. Even the part it does tell gets downsized. The novel treats the resistance like a global struggle. The movie pins most of the action around Denver, so a 1,000-year occupation starts feeling weirdly local, like the apocalypse is happening on one city block while the rest of the planet politely waits off camera. Then the character growth gets put on fast forward. Johnny doesn't slowly learn, fail, adapt, and claw his way up. He gets handed a learning machine and comes out the other side as whatever the plot needs that day. Enough to outthink Psychlos, enough to lead people, enough to fly fighter jets that have somehow survived for 1,000 years. The movie doesn't earn those skills through time, it installs them like software. That's where the famous "how does this make sense" moments start stacking. Old jets that still run, aliens obsessed with gold while the obvious stockpiles never seem to matter, plans that feel like shortcuts because the film doesn't have room to build the same greedy system the book could stretch out over hundreds of pages. And while all that compression is happening on screen, the script itself was getting pulled in different directions off screen. One writer comes in, then another. The project shifts hands. The intention keeps changing. You can feel it in the finished movie because the tone doesn't settle. One stretch wants bleak sci-fi conquest, the next play like loud camp, then it tries to sprint into simple set pieces like it's afraid to stop and explain itself. So the strangest part isn't just that the book got cut down, it's that you can see the cut lines. A big world pushed into a smaller frame, a story forced to move faster than it can support, and the cracks becoming the movie's loudest feature. Number 4. Battlefield Earth looks like a movie where everyone decided subtle was illegal. Turl's eyes are huge. The stare never softens. The blinking feels sharp, irritated, almost angry at the air. Care moves like his own body is fighting him. And once you know what the actors were wearing, that exaggerated energy stops looking like pure acting and starts looking like survival. John Travolta's Turl wasn't just makeup and attitude. Those eyes were work. Travolta wore oversized hand-painted green contact lenses that covered far more of the eye than a normal cosmetic lens. They weren't a small tint, they were big enough to change how the eye reads on camera, and multiple accounts have described them as difficult to wear for long periods, limiting vision and making blinking uncomfortable. Watch Turl in close-ups. That harsh stare and aggressive blinking rhythm doesn't feel relaxed, because it can't be. The performance is happening on top of irritation. Then you get to Forrest Whitaker inside and the problem gets heavier. The Psychlos weren't a suit, they were a build. Height, bulk, weight distribution that changes how you balance. Massive prosthetic hands that turned basic gestures into clumsy labor. If Care feels awkward, it's because the body he's trapped in is awkward. Walking cleanly becomes a negotiation. Turning, bending, reacting, even just standing still without looking like you're about to tip forward becomes part of the job. And the production got even stranger when it turned into a family operation. Kelly Preston joined the film as Chirk, going through hours of prosthetic application to become a Psychlo herself. Not a quick cameo in normal makeup, full alien, full rubber, full commitment. It's a surreal detail because it means the movie's most mocked creatures weren't just created by designers, they were created by actors and their spouses agreeing to do hard time in gear that made every minute uncomfortable. That's why the Psychlos feel so physically loud. The aliens don't just look exaggerated, they look like the humans inside them are squinting, stomping, and blinking their way through scenes. Number 5. On paper, this production had the resume that's supposed to prevent embarrassing sci-fi sets. Roger Christian wasn't learning the genre on the job. He won an Oscar for set decoration on the original Star Wars, earned major recognition for Alien, and later worked with George Lucas on projects like Return of the Jedi and The Phantom Menace. In most movies, that background buys you one guarantee. Even if the story wobbles, the world still feels solid. So he reached for the old-school trick that made classic sci-fi look real up close: greebling. It's the art of making surfaces feel engineered by layering them with functional-looking junk: scrap metal, plastic bits, machine parts, wiring, camera pieces, anything that adds depth and use. A clean wall looks like a set. A wall covered in dense detail looks like a machine people have lived with, repaired, and relied on. But here, the same method keeps slipping into clutter. Instead of lived in, the texture can read like noise, like the sets are trying to shout future through quantity rather than through a coherent design spine. Once you're inside the Psychlos spaces, the look settles into a mood that rarely changes. Cold interiors, heavy blue lighting, bunker-like corridors that feel industrial instead of alien, with props that sometimes seem piled on rather than integrated. Then the scale problem hits. The story wants you to feel a 1,000-year occupation, but the frames keep collapsing into enclosed rooms and narrow halls. And when the effects shots arrive, they don't always connect cleanly to what the sets are promising. You can sense the stretch, like the movie is always reaching for a bigger world than it can fully show. That's what makes the outcome so frustrating. The right hands were there, the right toolbox was there, but the finished world still feels like a cold warehouse dressed with spare parts, because the production never gives the design enough support to become a place you actually believe people have ruled for centuries. Number 6. This one walked into theaters with baggage it didn't earn on screen. Before most people even saw it, a rumor started circulating that the film supposedly carried subliminal Scientology messages, hidden cues meant to nudge viewers toward the church. The rumor spread fast for one reason: John Travolta wasn't just the star. He was publicly tied to Scientology and had pushed for this project for years, so people showed up ready to scan the movie instead of simply watch it. Every intense line felt suspicious. Every big, heroic beat felt like it might be selling something. It didn't need proof to become part of the conversation, it just needed to sound believable for a minute. Warner Brothers dismissed it, but by then the headline had already stuck. And then the best message anybody remembered wasn't hidden at all. A critic joked that the only subliminal voice he heard said, "Leave this cinema now." Not think about it, not maybe later, just a full emergency exit announcement. Number 7. Even if you try to watch this as a straight alien takeover story, one detail keeps tugging at people's brains: the name Psychlos. It doesn't sound like a clean, made-up sci-fi word. It sounds like it's leaning towards something real, like it's trying to scrape a nerve on purpose. Screenwriter J.D. Shapiro later gave a blunt explanation for why that might be. His read was that L. Ron Hubbard likely landed on Psychlos because of his long-running hatred of psychiatrists and psychologists, with the word itself feeling like a twisted echo of psych, not a language choice, a jab. And Hubbard's history is why the theory sticks. After doctors rejected his spiritual healing ideas and some reportedly suggested he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, he became an aggressive, long-term opponent of psychiatry. Number 8. The marketing and the reported budget put this in a sci-fi event. Big scale, big world, big polish. And then you watch it and the images keep giving off a different truth. Interiors that feel bare once the camera settles, sets that look industrial and thin, effects that seem stretched, lighting that often feels like it's trying to hide how little space is actually dressed. It creates that constant distracting question: if the number was that big, why does the world feel this small? Number 9. This wasn't normal bad movie territory. This was the rare kind of release where the ridicule gets louder than the dialogue. People didn't just dislike it, they treated it like a public mistake that needed to be pointed at, repeated, and weaponized. The hate became part of the title. Number 10. The wild part is the studio was already thinking past the first movie. The follow-up was being lined up with a target around 2003. Then the theatrical numbers landed and the plan collapsed in public. In the US and Canada, it opened at about $1.55 million and ended its run at $21.47 million. Worldwide, it finished around $29.7 million. Either way, the theatrical run didn't leave a keep-going runway. It left a crater. So the sequel didn't get delayed, it got dropped. Battlefield Earth isn't a hidden classic. It's a movie so committed to its bad decisions that the experience turns physical, like the frame itself can't sit still. Comment the next film you want us to step into and subscribe if you want the deeper, more detailed stories behind movies that went wrong in public.